Hey y'all, it's been a while since I've done one of these beginning of the video talk kind of things. Don't worry though, this will be quick. So today marks the day where my new channel has surpassed my old channel in terms of subscribers anyways. And that's great, because I've gained more subscribers in roughly a year than I ever did in several years of owning that previous channel. And to be fair, I never really had a direction with that channel, and I was a stupid kid for most of that channel's length anyways. Like, some of the titles didn't even have capital letters. And you wanna know how bad it was? I did Minecraft videos sometimes. That's how bad my previous channel was. Jesus. But yeah, thank you everyone for helping this channel grow. Now on to some bad news. I recorded quite a few stories for this week's compilation, but the problem is the audio kind of sucks for them. I guess I plugged in my microphone into what I can only assume to be a USB port that isn't working properly anymore. So the audio came out to be very spotty. So, because of that, I only have one story this week. I apologize profusely, and I'll promise to make it up to you guys in the next video. I tried to put as much cinematics and atmosphere into this one story as possible to try and compensate a bit, but yeah. So, anyways, here we go, on to the story. I work late evenings at a general store and had to walk home at the time because my car was being repaired at the shop. It was raining on and off for the entire day, and I had to prepare myself for whatever Mother Nature decided to throw at me during my journey home. Once every couple of months, I visited a cemetery nearby where I live to place flowers next to my mother's grave. I had planned to do it this evening after work, despite the weather forecast. I already had the flowers all nice and wrapped up, and I really wanted to stop by her grave. After my shift ended, I began walking. It's not that long of a walk from the town I work in to the cemetery, but it is a bit of a trek from the cemetery to my hometown next door, down a creepy road called High Street. The weather was breezy and the sky was cloudy, so any minute now I could expect it to begin raining. I hurriedly made my way up to the cemetery, and by the time I reached it, it began to drizzle. I looked at my phone and noted the time. I heard the siren of a local fire department go off as I walked into the cemetery to find my mother's grave. After spiking the flowers down into the ground and kneeling down to quickly reminisce about my mother and say a few words, I got up and turned around towards the exit to leave the cemetery. I was past the first row of graves near the exit when I heard the sound of crunching leaves, branches, and twigs. Being cautious, I stood there and waited about a minute in silence before exiting the cemetery and onto the street. Suddenly, it began to rain harder. I had taken my chances and decided not to take an umbrella with me when I left work, and I was now regretting it. Luckily, I was wearing a hooded sweater, so I put my hood up and began to power walk down the road towards the town I live in. I'm coming up to High Street, and now it's looking creepy. Trees on both sides that look dead due to the lack of leaves, and the darkness of the night illuminated only by the brightness of a moon that cannot be seen through the cloudy sky. I'm not far down High Street when I hear the sound of a couple of squeaky footsteps coming from behind me. I turn around, but saw nobody in the darkness of night. I felt on edge as I continued to walk, all while listening in behind me. The sound of the rainfall didn't do much to help me, unfortunately, as it began to rain even harder now. I looked behind me a few more times on the way down the road and saw nothing but water-soaked road and deathly trees. I can see my town in the near distance and feel a bit less edgy. Not long afterwards, I heard the familiar sound of someone walking behind me. I thought about walking up to someone's house and pretending I lived there, but I had already passed them by on this road. As I'm looking down towards town, a pickup truck comes turning onto the road and begins to speed up towards me. I quickly jump off the side and luckily didn't fall into mud or anything. As I looked behind me to watch the truck speed off, my heart raced for a few seconds as I picked myself back up and hurried my pace. I began to feel more fearful than before. If only I could get into town, then I'd feel safe. I began power walking again down towards the town, all the while looking behind me to make sure no one is following. each time my eyes revealing the same darkness and trees. I made it down into town and hurriedly ran over to a laundromat where I saw two people inside. Once I was at the door, I looked behind me and saw somebody standing there, looking in my direction at the intersection where High Street ends, now somewhat illuminated by a nearby street light. The only thing I could see was a shadow of a man carrying what looked like a drawstring bag in his hand. I watched as he turned around and walked back up High Street. I walked into the laundromat, soaking wet and breathing heavily, when an older woman and her husband turned around from what they were doing and asked me what was wrong. I told them I was being followed. They looked at me with concern and asked if I wanted my clothes dried. I took off my sweater and gave it to them. My town, or borough, has a local PD, and I decided to dial them and let them know what happened. Coincidentally, as I stepped outside to buy something from a vending machine while simultaneously dialing the PD, I saw one of the borough's policemen coming down the road in my direction. I waved him down, and once he pulled up, I recounted my story. With a few head nods and a couple of questions, he drove off in the direction of High Street as I went back to the laundromat to wait for my sweater. Once it was done, I thanked the couple and finished walking home in the now only drizzling rain.